take the roll call. It is now 5:03. Commissioner Cowan?
Present.
Commissioner Gowan? Then take the roll call. Commissioner Galante Pizaña?
Here.
Commissioner Cowan? Commissioner Tetro? Commissioner Munguia? Commissioner Munguia? Commissioner Neese?
I'm here.
And Mayor, you're here.
Last I checked.
Okay, it is now 5:04. I will go ahead and read the notice. Notice of a special meeting of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, public conference open meeting pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5, Section 551.041 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Open Act. Notice is hereby given that the City Commission of the City of Brownsville will conduct a special meeting on Tuesday, April 28, 2020 at 5 p.m. via WebEx teleconference meeting by logging on through the WebEx. The meeting number is 960-107-666. Been taken. For the record, we are missing Commissioner Munguia and Commissioner Tetro. And if Pastor Brad Burks would please do the invocation.
Okay, let's pray. Father God, we thank you. We thank you for so many blessings that we have here in Brownsville. We thank you for our health, and for those of us that don't have health, we thank you for our healthcare workers. Lord, we ask you to lead, guide, and bless them. For those that need healing, we ask you to bring the healing quickly. For those that have lost loved ones, we ask you to bring comfort. And Lord God, with so much conflicting information out there, we ask you to lead and guide all of our leaders from Washington to Austin to right here in Brownsville. Lead and guide our mayor, our city commissioners, and every presenter concerning every decision they need to make today. Even the decisions that they do not know that they need to make yet. We ask you for your wisdom and your anointing for that. And Lord, we thank you for all of these things. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. And now we'll have a short moment of silence where we can all add our prayers to what has already been spoken. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Okay, public comment period. Griselda, do we have anybody signed up for public comments?
No, sir. At this time, no one signed up for the public comment period. So we'll go on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item number 1, discussion regarding the City of Brownsville response to the urgent public necessity concerning COVID-19, otherwise known as the coronavirus, included but not limited to Letter A, continuity plan update, city staffing, facilities, and services, including actions and continuity of such operations. Letter C, testing site update.
Honorable Mayor, Commissioners, good evening. Can we go to the PowerPoint? So through today, we have had 1,410 tests administered. Through to date, we've had 1,781 tests that did not meet criteria. Do keep in mind that we recently expanded the criteria, and the CDC also recently rolled out some new criteria. We were very fortunate that because we were working with Dr. McCormick, some of this criteria had already been integrated into some of the work that we're doing at the sports park. So we continue to review the CDC criteria on a regular basis, and we continue to make changes so that we can be as inclusive as we can for people who wish to be tested. We have a running total of 55% who have come through the drive-through who have been insured, and a 45% uninsured. Thus far, we have reported 83 cases positive to Cameron County Health Department and 1,227 negative results. As of Friday, we had 103 results pending. Keep in mind that sputum tests were used from day 1 through day 18, which ended on April 17th. We have now transitioned to swab tests on day 19, allowing us to now get what we consider be a more efficient use, not only of our time, but also the tests themselves have a 90% to 95% probability of being accurate. I want to also add the COVID-19 drive-through site for yesterday, day 24, had 36 individuals patient tested, 18 insured, 18 uninsured, giving us a running total of 86 positive through yesterday and 1,317 negatives. As of yesterday, we've had 1,446 individuals come through drive-through. We did report 3 positives yesterday and 90 negatives that were returned to us by the laboratory. At this time, as of yesterday, we had 46 results pending, and these numbers are accurate as of Monday evening at 8 p.m. I will now ask Ms. Jones to come over and report on the confirmed cases and estimated recovery for Brownsville.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. So the graph that you're looking at right now is the cumulative confirmed cases and our estimated recovered within Brownsville, beginning with March 21st of 2020. And this is showing you the trend line, and we had discussed this one previously. One thing I did want to mention is that with the recovered and the cumulative cases, those individuals are kind of falling off of that line and moving into the other. So we don't have the 119 that are active cases. I know there had been some questions that have been posed to us, so I just wanted to kind of make that clarified that you do move around within that graph. And then we have one more graph, if we go to the next slide. And this is that traditional epi curve that you hear about. And this is how many of our daily case counts that we're seeing every day. And you can see we kind of had a peak on the, I think that's on the 11th. And so you can see how we kind of rose up and then we started kind of declining. Now, when I run the numbers, what I do see is that we're kind of averaging about 5 cases a day. So just keep that in mind. And that's that traditional epi curve that we'll talk about, or you'll see spoken about quite frequently. And then I'll give it back to Dr. Rodriguez to finish out.
Next slide. So last week, one of the items that I highlighted was the source of infection. Once the county does the tracing investigation, we find that community linked to previous case and travel being as how they get reported by the county. Linked to previous case continues to be the primary source of infection in Brownsville for the most part. And the community is second, followed by travel right behind it at 24 compared to 26. This is important to us because it's telling us, and this is important for me to share with our community and our commissioners, it's because of the drive-through testing that I feel we're catching the clusters at a point in time where they're being contained to either their households or a group of employees or people who would be working together, or maybe even friends. But it's important to note that linked to previous case for us is important because it tells us that we're slightly staying ahead of that curve by finding the cases early enough to where the community-based sources of infection is not the primary ranking number at this point in time. Next slide. So COVID-19 drive-through questionnaires received through April 24th. We've had a steady submission. I just wanted to highlight the peaks and troughs. On April 12th, we've had the lowest amount with 22 submissions, and the most submissions occurred on March 27th with 327 submissions. I wanted to explain that and go a little bit deeper into that because that's important. As you may remember, when we started on March 25th, we had submissions coming in from outside of Brownsville, and we had individuals who themselves were not sure and tested the website to see what it was about. As we've come along, we've found that the people that are actually now coming to our website are people who are now better informed, understand the use of the drive-through, and even at times physicians are referring people to us. So when you take the April numbers looking like they're lower, keep in mind that it's a more efficient use of our drive-through. We now have people who are either exhibiting symptoms or coming in understanding that they've been referred by potentially a provider, or they themselves have listened to a lot of the outreach that we've been doing. On Southmost, for example, we continue to do a lot of outreach, and we continue to see some addresses there that get reported. So I now see that these activities are connected, our outreach and mitigation strategies, and then the fewer submissions tells me that the numbers out there on the questionnaires are being used by those who need it the most. And I think that's what I wanted to highlight for this slide tonight, that the number itself doesn't tell a story without us explaining that the number may appear lower, but it's reaching those that need it. And we continue to work that daily so that we can reach those households who may not be sure where to go get testing. I also want to add that there are more testing options today than there were back on March 25th, 26th. Doctors' offices have now begun to offer this. UTRGV, as you know, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We continue to do this, and even I believe the governor recently even allowed pharmacists to do some COVID testing. Thank you. Next slide. Okay. And I will turn now to financial spending update by Finance Department.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners. We have the financial spending date through April 24th. Summary, we have a budget impact of $3.3 million, emergency procurement, $137,000, total expenditures about $3.1 million. Eligible FEMA reimbursement, 75% of that is about $2.3 million. Breakdown on these is, if you can see the buckets that make up the total cost. You got personnel. The three major ones is personnel costs, about $3.1 million, supplies, $62,000, and contracted services, about $35,000. On personnel, we broke it down into the costs that are associated. The biggest impact is our fire and PD. I broke it down further into what the base pay is and what emergency, because of contract provisions of emergency pay, what is attributed to the cost on this, on the police total expenditures. This is as of April 12. Our expenses have not been reflected as of this payroll. A total of 1.6 for police and fire of 1.5%. Excuse me, 1.5 million. Go to the next slide, please. On the emergency procurement, we had two emergency procurement, again, same ones as previously. This was for PPE masks. Initial procurement was for 7,000 masks, of which we only received half of the order. That's why we only reflect the spending of half the amount of 29,750. It's my understanding the second part of the order is going to be, because it has not been delivered to date, it's going to be canceled, and we're in process of ordering those items from a different alternative vendor. Second item is the contracting of the testing drive-through test site. Is broken out into the operating costs or the medical staff of about $37,000, and testing kits about $639, equivalent to $70,290. This is the city's costs because of uninsured tests. That concludes the presentation. You have any questions?
Lupe, this is Mayor Mendez. I did have a couple questions on the can you go back one slide, please? Okay, on the PPE masks, you stated that you ordered 7,000, but you only got half of that. So where are we, if you know, on remaining masks? Are we okay? Have we ordered more, and when do we expect to get them? And then what happened with this contract? Are we going to have to do anything about it since we didn't get the second shipment?
As far as the order, we went ahead and canceled the order with the vendor. Thereby, we're not being obligated to continue with the procurement. As far as the amount of masks available. I believe Odie or Chief Sheldon might have a update on the supplies that they have right now.
Sheldon, we do have a pretty healthy supply right now as far as fire and EMS. We're at about 3,000 masks, and then plus within our internal services department, we probably have double or triple that. We are placing a large order in bulk pretty soon.
Well, do you know where you are then? If you're going to place something soon, do you know how many you're going to be ordering, and are you going to have any sort of issues with procurement on that?
I believe the procurement department's working on that right now, purchasing department. It's going to be a large order, probably around 20,000 masks. And so far, the vendor has verified that they do have them. We're just bring those stuff.
Do you know how long it's going to take for that to arrive?
That might be a question for purchasing, but from my understanding, just a couple weeks.
Okay.
Mayor, they 2 weeks.
Hello, Lupe, this is Dr. Gowan. I sent you a link earlier this week about reimbursement for testing for uninsured people. Were you able to include that estimate in your estimate of what's being potentially reimbursed?
We're currently working with the grants department and ODI. There's 3 potential funding sources that we got. We got FEMA, we got a Department of Justice grant, and we also got an allocation coming through the state through the Lower Rio Grande Valley. And yes, that is an eligible item that we're going to be submitted for reimbursement.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question for Art. Art, going back to the chart on the amount of positives that we had, how many were community, how many were travel related, and how many were the other category? On community, does that just mean that they got it somehow within the community itself? And then what were the other categories? And can you explain a little bit more on how you determine, or how the county determines
Yes, sir.
who's getting infected on that?
Yes, sir. So when you see the source of infection and they label community, it means that when they did the contact tracing investigation, they couldn't find either a family member, a friend, or a coworker, or someone that person could have come in contact with that was positive. So a community acquired case by all means they were not able to connect it to someone potentially that had previously been tested and come up as positive for COVID. Linked to previous case is the opposite. It's during the interview process, they are able to find or make contact with someone who has previously tested to COVID, and therefore you established a link. This is that part of EPI where you call containment. And this is why this part, along with mitigation, is so important, because if we're able to do containment and keep the source of infection linked, and we're able to link it to the previous case, we're kind of staying right up. We're keeping pace with the infection as it's spreading. The last one, of course, is travel related. And that would be anyone who's been to either a country, an area, or a hotspot or a hot zone, even if it was community acquired in that part of the country. But at least we know that was an imported, for lack of a better word, imported from outside of the area.
And it's the county that does this tracing, correct?
That is correct, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mayor, Commissioners, just a quick update on the organization, since that's also part of letter A. We are, because of the governor's orders, we've scheduled a meeting with small groups of the commission to go over and start to prep for next Tuesday, when the current declaration will expire. So those will happen on Thursday, and if necessary, potentially Friday, and even next Monday. We're also planning for the recovery phase. Internally, we have a BTX Recovers Committee, and what we're doing is we've taken a long-term approach to how we've been addressing all of our pandemic plans, but we're also taking a phased approach that is adapted to whatever situation we may face with regard to measures that have been taken. So in the short term, because of the governor's orders, our focus is going to be on facilitating and supporting businesses on their reopening. And we'll share that document with you as we develop it. But our priority, in terms of staff, we don't foresee us opening and starting to reopen facilities until likely the early part of May. And that primarily is to accommodate businesses. For example, in downtown, we're currently planning for having a drive-through area to support small businesses, having curbside and drive-through areas. What we're also doing is looking at this long-term and seeing how we can rethink traditional practices that we've had within the organization, that the crisis has reflected and showed us that we could adapt and do things differently. For example, telework. Telework, we have 12% of our employees that are teleworking. We've surveyed them to ask for feedback in terms of how we can do things better, where we can improve, where they see that, where employees see telework fitting long-term and as a more permanent kind of work incentive and flexible work arrangement. So those are the things that we're doing. I'll tell you that the committee is not going to make decisions entirely on its own. It is basing our recommendations for the organization based on emergency management feedback, public health information, and then some administrative suggestions as well. So it's going to be a collaborative effort with multiple individuals within the organization, also including the commission, to make sure that the recovery phase is consistent with the actions that we've taken. The commission has been very strict up front with measures, and we also want to be conservative on the reopening and on the recovery. So that's the update I have for the organization. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Mr. Bernal, have you or has any of the staff determined just what sort of impact we're going to feel on the sales tax side? I know that there's been some publications on that. The Herald had an article on that about a week or two ago, but I don't know if you've done any additional research or if you or Mr. Granell have done anything on that. But I'm kind of wondering where we are on that impact.
Yes, Mayor, I'll let Lupe expand some more. The COVID-19 report we sent you all, the reference point that we used is the recession of 2008. The steepest decline that we see happening month over month. We did a 4-month projection of up to 20% sales tax losses. Depending on who you read and what report you're seeing, for example, a very well-known economist in Texas is Ray Perryman. So Perryman put out a report that talked about how the recession really shouldn't be a reference to the pandemic. And he has a much more optimistic outlook for the Texas economy. And he cited the McAllen MSA area to be one of the least impacted. So I think we have to take all this information in perspective. We won't really know the impact for March until May. There's a 2-month lag. So as that comes in, that'll be the first indicator of what drop in sales tax we're going to see as the economy potentially reopens on a limited basis. That could help insulate and protect us from any steep losses that will continue. There's also discussion that if we reopen too early, that there could be a second wave sometime in the fall. So that could potentially create a kind of a hill and a valley just within calendar year 2020. So overall, we're being as conservative as we can in our planning and scaling back with hiring freezes, limiting POs, all those kinds of things, as we try to make the best sense of what the projections for sales tax are going to be. Lupe, you may have some other thoughts.
No, Mr. Bernal pretty much covered it. There is a lot of other information on there on how we should be projecting some of these, but the best option other than making these estimates is kind of feel when we get the sales tax in May, the sales tax information in May, so that we could base it on actual activity and it would only be for half a month because this activity actually happened for the second 2 weeks of the month of March. So June would be the actual month in which we would feel the whole impact that we have for the month of April. So like I said, it's ongoing viewing what's out there and trying to provide reasonable estimates that best we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, I do have a question also for Chief Salceda. Chief, what are you seeing out there? How are we doing are we having any enforcement issues? I know that some members of the public think that everybody out there is getting a ticket by police for everything that they do, but if you can just clarify where we are on that and how your officers are doing the enforcement end.
So we've continued to educate our community. That's first and foremost our primary objective, to make sure that we work with our community and educating them what it is that is expected of them, what it is that is recommended, and more importantly, how it is that it affects us as a whole for us to be able to comply with the orders, and how it is that, you know, we're taking care of each other in doing so. From the start of our orders and the enforcement of our orders, we have had over 3,500 contacts. Out of those, there's only been a minimal of about 30 of them actually 300 of them actually being citations. So, I mean, the math is simple there. Most of our contacts have been educating in its objective and its mission. What it is that we continue to see is we definitely see a decrease in traffic throughout the evenings and things of that sort. We do see clusters here and there that we have been able to address. During Easter Sunday weekend, we used our drones and deployed some of our teams to be able to make sure that we maintain enforcement of orders during that critical test, if you would. Other than that, we're doing good. We're so lucky to be able to report that with the actions that we've taken in-house to safeguard our personnel and our resources, that we have zero infections to report in-house. We've been lucky. It's not to say that we haven't had employees tested, but up to now, all of those tests have been negative in nature.
Thank you very much, Chief. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, sir.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, next item then.
Mr. Mayor, this is the city attorney. I'm asking that public hearing item number 2 be taken out of order at the end of the meeting. And number 2, I also wanted to notify for the record that Commissioner Galonsky has noticed her conflict with item number 2.
Okay, council, then at what point do we need any sort of formal action to go ahead and take this out of order or move this?
No, we can just skip it and address it at the very end.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next item is going to be item number 3.
Correct.
Griselda?
Hello, December.
Griselda, you're muted. I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead, Griselda.
Okay, I'll read it again.
You're the only one that heard it.
All of us, I heard it. Okay, action item number 3. Consideration and action to approve interlocal agreement between the City of Harlingen and the City of Brownsville to assist in the detection and mitigation efforts in response to the current worldwide COVID-19 pandemic by cooperating in the drive-through testing site.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners. As you know, the state of Texas, Governor Abbott declared a state of disaster on March 13th, 2020. And both the City of Harlingen and City of Brownsville declared a public health emergency on March 17th, 2020. Since then, both cities have been mutually working with the county in trying to get a hold of the COVID-19 crisis pandemic. And we feel that through the drive-through, we can enhance that relationship. I want to point your attention to the request questionnaires that we've received through April 24th at our drive-through. Residents of Los Fresnos at 186, Harlingen residents at 175, Rancho Viejo 30, Olmito 28, Port Isabel 23. This interlocal agreement between the City of Harlingen and City of Brownsville gives the city to allow some cost recovery. It also gives the citizens of Harlingen another option for getting swab testing. And as I mentioned, the earlier curves, we have a very mobile residents in South Texas. So people from Brownsville travel back and forth to Harlingen. So by both cities mutually benefiting to establishing an interagency cooperation to assist in the detection and mitigation efforts for this COVID, I believe just takes us to a higher level of being able to flatten our curve. Of course, this is an agenda item. I can go over some specifics for you. For each Harlingen resident, whether insured or uninsured, receiving a COVID test, a $43 cost share reimbursement fee applies. For each uninsured Harlingen resident who is tested for COVID-19 at drive-through, an agreed rate of $110 per test will be reimbursed to the City of Brownsville. And for each Harlingen resident, whether insured or uninsured, receiving COVID-19 test, the amount of $15 for administration and verifying Harlingen residency questionnaire accuracy, referrals, and the existence of health insurance. This fee is applied and collected by the contractor, Valley Med. And then lastly, for each Harlingen resident having a submission questionnaire reviewed and not eligible to be selected for COVID-19 testing, the amount of $5 for processing the submission questionnaire review. This fee too is applied and collected by the contractor, Valley Med Urgent Care. I do want to also add lastly that the registration at this time would be through the btxcares.com, which also allows us to have more exposure to our BTX campaign. This is a consideration and action item.
Dr. Rodriguez, is there going to be any issues with us meeting a potential increased demand because of Harlingen at all? Are we good on the swabs, and is there any issues potentially going forward with supplies?
It's a great question, sir. So let me start by laying out the actual drive-through site. When we engineered the site, we engineered it so we could handle increased capacity up to 6 lanes. Throughout the whole life of this event, we've used lane 1 and lane 2. We've never had to go to lane 3. So as far as vehicle flows, the site itself was over-engineered to be able to handle the intake, the increased intake. On the supply side, we have been coordinating with our contractor since we began this conversations, and he has been working towards being able to keep up with the increased numbers that we have seen presently, and potentially with the increased numbers that may come with Harlingen residents. So to answer your question, yes, sir.
And then is there any interest from any of the other cities that we see on this chart, specifically Los Fresnos?
So we have seen small businesses from Los Fresnos insured come from the area. I cannot speak on behalf of the municipality. I have not heard myself, but if city manager's office has heard, I will let them answer that question. But as a health director, I have not received a phone call from Los Fresnos through today.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We've not heard back, Mayor. I can call Mark Milan, the city manager. Harlingen actually approached us, and they were actually surprised that there has been an interest. In fact, they're having a meeting tonight as well to approve this interlocal. And the city manager has asked for this data, and he's using basically this chart to show his commission that there is an interest. But I can call Los Fresnos. They have not reached out to us.
Oh, that's okay. If they haven't reached out, then that's their prerogative. I was just curious as to whether or not they had reached out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions? All right, this is an action item. Do we have any motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve in a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Art.
Action item number 4, Consideration and action on a license agreement with the Mitty Foundation for linear park improvement.
Sorry, I was muted. This is Ramiro. Mayor, City Commissioners, as you all know, the Mitty Foundation about a year ago purchased everything along 7th between Ringgold and the Expressway. So what we call the old Jackson Feed and the old copier warehouse. And so they have come up with an improvement plan. As you have seen, they demolished the Jackson Feed warehouse. And some of those improvements are actually on our property, in our right-of-way, our trail right-of-way. And so all the improvements are compatible to a park improvement. So it's landscape, it's sidewalks, it's fountains, planting, and all that kind of stuff. So the way we've normally approached this in the past is through a license agreement. And so that's what we did. That's exactly what we did here. There are a couple of items to highlight. The city of Brownsville is in charge for general maintenance that we already provide at Linear Park. So that includes, mowing and the standard maintenance that we see. Also, the Mitty Foundation has agreed to participate with 50% of the cost of public bathrooms. And so the initial plan was that the Mitty Foundation would build those bathrooms on our right-of-way. We shifted to making those bathrooms part of the Cannery Public Market Project, so that they would be wholly within the city and we would avoid any issues. And so they have agreed to participate in that cost of 50%. And the other item of cost is if it is determined that there are some public art sculptures or any type of art, the cost share on that would be 50-50 within this area. And so I'll entertain any questions if you have any. It's a great project, and I know the Mitty Foundation is really looking forward to getting underway.
Anybody have any questions on this item?
Hey, Ramiro, what's the timing on all those projects?
I know that the old Jackson Feed site, they've already demolished. I believe they're pretty much ready to submit for a building permit at this point. They really are just waiting for this agreement. So it's all going to go together. So as the building permit for the Jackson, for the new community center comes, then the landscape improvements will also occur. So everything was contingent upon approval of this. And so once this is rolling, I think they want to make a big announcement sometime later this month. If possible, I think, people will attend in person. But I think they're going to make that big announcement and then move forward quickly after that. So I would anticipate third quarter this year, we start seeing activity.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramiro. Any other questions?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Action item number 5. Consideration and action to accept a grant under the Coronavirus Air Relief and Economy Security Act in the amount of $1,857,797 from the Federal Aviation Administration for the Brownsville South Padre Island International Airport.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Commissioners. The item before you is to accept a grant under the CARES Act in the amount of $1,857,797 from the Federal Aviation Administration for the airport. The airport recommends approval.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Next item.
Action item number 6, consideration and action to vacate the prior city commission action taken at the meeting of April 21st, 2020, purporting to award the Anaco Street and Naranjo Road pavement, sidewalk, driveway, and drainage improvement project to GTN Paving LLC and award the project to the lowest responsible bidder, total commitment construction, in the amount of $2,810,000, $332.75, and authorize the mayor to execute the construction contract.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Commissioners. On April 21st, the City Commission took action to award a street construction project based on inaccurate information provided by this department. Texas Government Code Section 271 was referenced as a site as a basis to award the contract. Under this code, it does allow municipalities to award a bid that's within 5% of the lowest responsive bidder. Unfortunately, this could only be invoked if the construction project is less than $100,000. We also looked at Section 252, which is best known as best value, to award on this contract, to award it to a non-lowest bidder. Unfortunately, also on this Texas Government Code, it doesn't apply to street construction projects. Based on this information, Finance recommends rescinding the award to G&T Paving and awarding the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible vendor. The Finance recommends rescinding the award to G&T Paving and award the contract to the lowest responsible bidder. Total commitment construction in the amount of $2,810,332.75. You have any questions?
Yes, Lupe, this is Mayor Mendez. The overwhelming question that I have, which I think is the most obvious, is how is it that nobody picked up on this? This item got tabled from the meeting prior. So I recall that we were alerted to some issues in the meeting prior. It got tabled. And then when it got taken up for consideration last week, that nobody advises that there was going to be any sort of issues with awarding it to the local bidder. So I'm wondering how that was missed. It seems like procurement 101, and the commission, now is at risk of potential litigation or otherwise. So I'm not happy about it, and I think it reflects very poorly on us. So I'm wondering how this happened, and I want an explanation for it, quite frankly.
There is no elaborate explanation other than, unfortunately, this was not an item that was item for consideration, and using the preferred vendor laws. In the past, contracts has always been to the lowest bidder. Unfortunately, we failed to be fully understanding of the exemption and when it applies. There's not much elaboration on that on our part. It was just a simple failure on our part to be understanding of the whole code itself.
I'm going to go ahead and move to approve it the way it's written. Agenda.
So then, Commissioner Neese, your motion then is to rescind and approve for total commitment. Is that correct?
Rescind on G&T and approve on total commitment and authorize you to execute the contract.
Very good. We have a motion to rescind the award to G&T and award the project to the lowest bidder, total commitment construction. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
At this time, we will go back to the public hearings, agenda item number 2.
Who's going to present on this, Griselda?
the planning department. I just need to make sure, is Commissioner Galonsky off of the meeting? Commissioner Galonsky?
Yes, ma'am. She has been moved to the lobby. She is off the meeting.
Thank you, sir. I will go ahead and read agenda item number 2. Public hearing and action on first reading on ordinance number 235-219-011-S to allow wireless communication facility, a general retail 4C use in light industrial J, 7CJ for a 1.67 acre tract of land in Lot 1 RA Leak Estate, partition share 22 Espiritu Santo Grant located near the corner of Fish Hatchery Road and Expressway 77. This is in District 4.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners. As you recall, this is a case that goes back from 2019. So the request is for a specific use permit to allow a wireless communication facility in light industrial J. This property has 1.67 acres, and the proposed use is, as mentioned, WCF. This property is fronting Expressway 77. So just to give a brief timeline as to what has occurred with this case, last year it all began when the developer of the site submitted an application to the planning department on February 15th. Then this application went to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting where it was removed by the applicant. This occurred on March 6th of 2019. Then the specific use permit application was tabled by PNZ with the recommendation to request a variance since the facility was exceeding the height requirements of 135 feet, and it was in close proximity to a residential property, to be precise, 27.4 feet. So this case, the developer asked for a variance for the height and the proximity. They were granted both variances on May 1st of last year. Then this case went back to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting and was approved on May 2nd, 2019. Then following this, the case went to the City Commission meeting for first reading on May 7th, where it was denied. After that, there was litigation, and finally there was a court order signed in favor of the applicant on April 1st of this year. So this is an aerial view of the property. As you can see, there's predominantly single-family homes within the area. There's also some businesses. The primary zoning within the vicinity is dwelling. There is also apartment, general retail, light industrial, and light retail. This is the 200-foot buffer map. There were 11 mailouts and 1 written opposition. This written opposition resulted in a protested area of 20.57%. This is the site plan, the proposed site plan that the developer submitted. And this is an aerial view of the property. So finally, so PNZ did recommend the approval of this specific use permit to allow wireless communication facility with the condition that the property must comply with all city codes and regulations as determined through the site plan review process. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions on this?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Neese.
Yes, I'd like a clarification from our city attorney. If somebody has a conflict of interest, they get to be in the meeting, they just can't vote. Isn't that the way it is?
No, Commissioner, they're supposed to lead the days and not interact with the meeting itself. since
Okay, I thought it
we're
was
meeting
that was
virtually.
during executive session.
I'm sorry, no, that's at all times. When the meeting is out in the open, they're supposed to leave the days, and this is our electronic days for all
Okay.
practical purposes.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. Do we have anybody here on the side of Griselda?
Yes, sir. I had someone through chat mention that they wanted to say something in Spanish, and I told them that they could, sir, but they didn't give a name.
Very good.
They might be on.
Okay. Is that Mrs. Perales? If so, unmute, please.
Hello,
Okay.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I could hardly hear the conversation, but I'm familiar with the case because last year we went to the city meetings, and when I say we, my mother, which lives right behind the property, she's the closest one. She would be the closest one affected, along with maybe about 8 neighbors. And this is a very close-knit neighborhood. There's only 6 houses on this street that we live in. There are acre lots. So it's very residential, not commercial. So obviously we were opposed to the antenna being set up first and foremost because of our safety. And the expressway is also very close. So we would hate for this to turn into a tragedy if something related to the weather would ever happen to it. God forbid it's knocked down by weather, hurricane. We would be the ones affected if it would come southward. But first of all, like I said, for safety, well-being of the community, we were opposed to this. And the antenna was going to be large in dimensions. Obviously, this would be a decision, of the community. Last year, it was something that at the end was decided it was not going to happen. So, turn the page over and move on to, but here we are again, unfortunately. This is something that our city leaders, they have a voice and a say-so. And like for example, the COVID-19, which is not something that we can control. This is something we can control. We hate wasting your time. We don't understand why this is a topic again, but it's those points that I mentioned, especially the safety, the radiation that this antenna would cause. There are lots of neighboring big spacious lots that this antenna could be put in, very close in proximity. They want it close, but here directly close to our neighborhood, which is very huge inconvenience and unsafe. There was actually a property owner 2 lots down to that one, and that's in interest for sale. And we do have the information of the gentleman that's willing to sell the lot to the AT&T or whoever wants to purchase it. And he was actually last year present at the city meeting, willing to sell.
Thank you, Ms. Perales. Is that all your comments?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you logging on and letting us know where you stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Of course. Anybody else? Griselda, do we have anybody else signed on for this?
No, there was just one person.
Okay. In council, this is an item that obviously has been in litigation. And my understanding is that, hello, council?
Mayor,
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay.
Sí, buenas tardes.
Okay, hold on. Yes, Griselda, were you trying to say something?
Yes, there's someone else on that same line that would like to say something, sir.
Okay, very good. Then go ahead.
¿En español, ma'am? ¿En español?
Sí.
Ok, ¿me puede decir su nombre, por favor?
Rosalinda Perales.
Gracias. Ahora sí, puede hablar.
Y señora Perales, vas a tener 2 minutos para hablar, por favor. Gracias.
Ok. Mi nombre es Rosalinda Perales. Yo soy la que estoy inmediata aquí donde quieren poner la antena. No estoy de acuerdo con este proyecto porque ya había sido negado una vez, ¿verdad? Y ahora nos vuelven a otra vez con lo mismo. Todo es, ¿verdad? Cuestión de salud, seguridad, ¿verdad? Aquí hay mucho tráfico en el Florida Expressway. Yo estoy al lado de la casa, la antena es muy alta. ¿Qué va a pasar con los malos tiempos cuando se vienen los aires fuertes? Huracanes, entonces pues va a caer, no sabemos a dónde caiga, ¿verdad? Porque es muy alta. Ahora hay más terrenos a los lados aquí que pueden ir a hacer eso, quieren hacer. Porque aquí, ¿verdad? No sé, son intereses personales de los dueños, no sé qué está pasando con los comisionados. Nosotros votamos por ustedes para que ustedes estén con nosotros, ¿verdad? Entonces, las propiedades también, pues, se van a devaluar. Y sobre todo, la salud de uno, porque yo en mi lugar, yo soy una persona mayor de edad y ya tengo mis problemas de salud y pues no me gustaría y no quisiera que pasara esto conmigo. Ok, gracias.
Gracias, señora Perales. Is there anybody else on this item?
Yes, my name is Carmen Almaraz, and I'm also affected. I live right next door in front of Fish Hatchery, next to the property. And yes, we did mention that it's health issues. There's safety issues. Our only way out is southbound. Something might happen. We're locked in. Whether it's weather-wise, whether it's malfunction, it doesn't matter what it might be, we are still affected because it's only one way out. Something falls on that opposite side, we're locked in. If it falls on our property, Ms. Perales or mine, how long are we going to have to wait for everything to be cleared out, clean? Who's going to pay our damages? We've invested in our property a lot. I know that little piece is commercial, I'll respect it, but not a tower. I have one more person left.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Graciela Villarreal. Es un placer estar aquí con ustedes y esperemos que tomen en cuenta la presencia de nosotros porque también nosotros somos parte de Brownsville. Entonces, uno de mis complaints que tengo contra la antena es más que todo la salud, radiation, ¿ok? Puede afectar en muchos aspectos, ¿ok? Desgraciadamente no tengo nada ahorita porque esto fue muy, muy corto el aviso que nos dieron. Hice un research and I provide, les di copias de lo que pudimos la junta anteriormente, ¿ok? Hay fotos también donde se caen las towers, donde han pasado accidentes. Tomen en cuenta eso. Entonces, otro aspecto es las propiedades de las taxas. Tengo amigas que son realtors y venden casas y tienen sus clientes que van y ofrecen casas y se batallan las propiedades para vender porque la gente no quiere comprar alrededor de esos towers, ¿ok? So, sí afecta. Un tower a nuestra comunidad afecta, ¿ok? Ahora, al cruzar la calle de la canal, el drainage ese, adelantito, se presentó el señor Ricardo Robles, que es el dueño de la propiedad. Él tiene un acre .888 y él estaba ofreciendo rentarla o vendérsela a AT&T. Son como 2 bloques más para adelante, 2 propiedades más adelante. ¿Por qué no se interesan en ese sitio? Allí no hay casas alrededor, ¿sí? Allí no hay quien se oponga a la antena. ¿Por qué precisamente aquí en este sitio? Allí hay conflicto de interés. ¿Okay? Sabemos que la dueña está involucrada en políticas. ¿Okay? Sabemos que es la commissioner y tiene poder. I hate to say this, tiene poder. Pero yo quiero que ustedes nos tomen a nosotros en consideración. ¿Ok? Otra cosa. Cuando entra uno de Raymondville, de la Quineña para acá, lo primero que ves sus palm trees. Ahorita ya no es lo mismo que antes, ¿verdad? Porque las quitaron. Pero that identifies the valley, palm trees. Entonces, la primera, entras aquí a Brownsville, lo primero que vamos a ver va a ser una antena en vez de nuestro palm trees. Eso es lo más bonito que se va a ver de Brownsville, la antena. ¿Ok? Esa es otra cosa. Aparte de los puntos que tocamos la vez anterior. Es todo lo que tengo que decirles. Gracias.
Gracias, señor Villarreal. Griselda, is there anybody else? Is that all we got?
I believe that's all, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Council, can you just give us a brief summary? This unfortunately is back because of federal litigation, and my understanding is that the company or the applicant for this is able, based on litigation, they did prevail as far as being able to put this tower up. Am I correct?
Yes, Mayor. Unfortunately, as you're aware, the commission has ruled previously and opted not to go through with issuing the ordinance required for the build of this antenna. However, the city of Brownsville was sued in federal court, and as you know, this item is back because of the federal orders entered in that case. So I understand that this is an item that is difficult for everyone involved. However, I think out of fairness, we also want to make sure everyone understands that this item is back because of the federal orders issued in regards to that lawsuit.
Right, and I did want the public to understand that the city commission actually did at one time vote to deny this application. However, it did go to litigation, and based on the federal court orders, this is something that is allowed, unfortunately. So, being that there's no other individuals for public hearing, can I have a motion to close public hearing?
I move to close.
We have a motion to close. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, do I have a motion on the item?
I'm going to have to make a motion in light of the federal court order.
I understand, Commissioner. We do have a motion to approve the application. Do I have a second?
And I'm going to have to make the second for the same reason.
We have a begrudging motion and a begrudging second. Noted. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. There is no further business. Do I have a motion to adjourn?